Now to Eliana Ros-Lehtinen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Blinken, during your confirmation hearing in the Senate, you had promised Senator Rubio and the Foreign Relations Committee that you and the administration would consult Congress on any policy changes the administration was seeking toward Cuba. That turned out to be a complete falsehood. Now, I worry that the Cuba example was a deliberate attempt by the administration to keep Congress in the dark regarding the Castro negotiations. And why is this important? Not only because of the Cuba deal, but of how that implicates the Iranian deal. Keeping us in the dark, it foreshadows the administration's approach to Congress and keeping us out of the loop on the Iranian deal. The administration has made it clear that it does not want Congress to vote on the Iranian deal anytime soon, but you just said to Mr. Royce that the UN Security Council will be having a vote, binding vote on the Iranian deal. Just to make it clear, you will be going to the UN Security Council to ask for a vote on the Iranian deal. Yes?
We will be going to the Security Council, presumably, because this is an international agreement implicating all the members of the Security Council, to take note of the deal, and if there are any requirements,
vote on the deal.
If there are any requirements of the Security Council pursuant to the deal,
to vote,
to make clear that it will make good
Congress can wait,
just
the UN
Congress
Security
will have to
Council.
vote
Yeah, 10 years
decide
from now.
on any lifting of sanctions.
No problem. And Palestinian statehood, there have been reports last night that in order for President Obama to continue his temper tantrum toward Prime Minister Netanyahu, what we will be doing in the United Nations is push in the shadows for a vote on Palestinian statehood in order to pressure Israel to be at the negotiation table with the Palestinians. Is that true? Is that press report true?
No. The administration's support for Israel is absolutely unshakable. We have done more for
that support is
over
very
the last
clear.
6 years.
Thank you. Thank you. No, that support is very clear.
History.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask you another question on Iran for a minute, but I wanted to ask Mr. Zubin, your Cuba sanctions regulatory revisions earlier this year took a very broad view of the administration's licensing authority under the Trading with the Enemy Act, and I fear that the administration is using Cuba as a test case, as I said, for normalizing relations with Tehran, and will utilize its licensing authority to provide broad relief for Iran. Under the JPOA, the U.S. is committed to removing nuclear-related sanctions on Iran. However, as the author of the Iran sanctions law, the concept of an exclusively defined nuclear-related sanction on Iran does not exist in U.S. law. Sanctions are intertwined with Iran's human rights record, its ballistic missile program, and its support for terrorism. So I ask you, Mr. Zubin, which sanctions will you seek to suspend and ultimately lift under a final agreement, and will you come to Congress to ask for authorities before such action is taken?
Thank you, Congresswoman. With respect to the actions we took in the Cuba amendments, amending our regulations, I will note that the licensing authority is one that's been drawn on by administrations, Democratic and Republican, over the last decade, and I've been involved under both presidencies, and it's an authority that—
Thank you. We'll leave it's going to take a long time. Mr. Blinken, Iran has been cheating, skirting the rules, violating international agreements. You've heard from both Mr. Engel and Mr. Royce on that. What mechanism do we have to enforce any violation? Will there be penalties embedded in the nuclear deal, if you could be specific?
Thank you. First, I should note that the IAEA has said repeatedly that Iran has complied with its obligations under the interim.
Is that all that the IAEA has said? Has the IAEA also not said that Iran is not complying and is not letting them in as the IAEA has asked?
No, it's said that under the agreement, Iran has complied. It's also said, you're correct, that outside of the agreement, Iran, of course, is seeking to do whatever.
So you look at their reports and you say, you cherry pick and you say, okay, the IAEA is happy with this. You should give the totality of what they have been saying and how frustrated that agency has been with Iran throughout all of these negotiations.
No, I want to be clear to answer your question, that the IAEA has said that with regard to its obligations under the interim agreement, Iran has complied. You're also absolutely correct that outside of the agreement, including the critical question of the possible military dimensions of Iran's program in the past, or for that matter now, it has not complied with what the IAEA is seeking. And indeed, that will have to be part of any agreement. And as to enforcement, it's very straightforward. As the Undersecretary said, as I said, in the event Iran were to renege on any commitment it made, the sanctions would snap back in full force.
And I'm sure that Iran is just shaking at that because that's very
That's why they're at the table.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.